if there's questions about my story, medicine box, how we got here, why we created it, drop it in the chat. Elena's going to drop a calendar link of mine. I offer everybody a free 30-minute consult about microdosing. And it's also part of the 90-day program that we have an offer for you at the end. But the offer, yeah, I'll try to sell you guys something at the end here, but that's not important to me. The importance is being able to get these ideas out and share a little bit about the concepts that I have, looking at taking a step back and looking at the world and how it is operating right now, this modern, crazy, messed up world. I always say the world is a fucked up place, but you don't have to be. So obtain a better view of reality with the 90-day microdosing journey. Remember, one of those pillars there is mindfulness. Buddha is quite a muse of mine, and your worst enemy cannot hurt you as much as your own thoughts when you haven't mastered them. But once mastered, no one can help you as much. And back to addiction, I think a lot of us, the majority of us in this world right now, are addicted to our thoughts, whether we know it or not, unintended, whether we know it or not. Our thoughts can rule us. 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day for the average human being goes through it, probably the Western mind, right? Go through our head, and the majority of those being negative. Okay, so who am I? Why I started it? What you're going to learn today: philosophy of microdosing as an alternative solution to transform your personal and professional life. Why microdosing actually doesn't work. Yes, microdosing doesn't work without your dedicated effort. And learn how intentional practices of mindfulness and mental fitness combined with microdosing. I call those M&Ms. My favorite candy actually is the peanut butter chocolate covered M&Ms. Those are my favorites. So this is my other favorite here, M&Ms. You can take a lot of things away from me, everybody, but don't fucking take away my meditation. I'm sitting on my meditation mat right now. And don't worry about meditation. Like, if you don't meditate, or you never have, or you tried and you think you failed and you can't, don't worry about meditation. I'm going to tell you some simple practices about meditation where it can be very approachable. You can meditate at the gas pump, at the dinner table. You can just sit there and stare at a tree. That's all meditation. You can walk without your phone. Put your damn phone down and just be quiet. That's meditation. Understand the age of anxiety and how we all, capital letters, contribute to it. Why I disagree with Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. If you've probably all seen the documentary, and there's the book, How to Change Your Mind. I disagree with Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind philosophy. Discover a sustainable practice that integrates medicine and mentorship to cultivate awareness, transform yourself with a customized 90-day journey to become free of worry and overthinking. But here's the good news, everybody. The good news and the bad news, as long as we are a human being on this earth dealing with other human beings and people, places, and things, we are probably going to worry. We are probably going to overthink, and we are probably going to get triggered. That is just something that we need to accept. And then pray for PTA, what I call patience, tolerance, and acceptance, and learn the simple 4-step equation and framework of a microdosing practice, and how to tune in with the cycles of nature, how to do it safe, and where to begin, and what to expect. And then last but not least here, why your anxiety just is. It just is. And how microdosing is not, capital letters, I repeat, not a magic pill or a panacea. And some cool quotes. Always quotes. I am a huge fan of quotes, everybody. I have hundreds of them written down all over the place. Who is this for? I'd like to thank all of you on here. This is for you. You're open-minded, willing to take an extra step into the unknown. You truly value your well-being. Look at that AI tool following me around there. Anyone use WordTune? Great AI tool. You truly value your well-being of those around you. You want to be accountable to your health and happiness. You want to be a part of the solution to the mental health epidemic. And you want to understand what it means to be fully human. Okay, we're going to even do this. Bam, to be fully human. Bam. Okay, what is microdosing? You all thought you were coming into a microdosing presentation. You're going to learn all the tips, tricks, and what psilocybin is and all the receptors and everything. But we have to understand why it is so interesting to us, why we have the curiosity on this term. It's just a word. It really is just a word, everybody. We like to label things and identify with things and put words on them to give them what? Meaning. But we have to understand what is the deeper levels of meaning underneath this. And this is a practice. So straight from the dictionary, microdosing, noun, the action or practice of taking or administrating very small amounts of a drug in order to test or benefit from its psychological action while minimizing undesirable side effects. And then some other, my own definitions here. Provides an opportunity to observe the mind in its processes from a different perspective. That's right there. If you had to pick one, that would be the main effect benefit right there. It gives us an opportunity or a gift to observe the mind and its processes from a different perspective. Yes, can it help you with creativity and clarity and concentration and focus and connection and all the things like the media throws out at you and Silicon Valley throws at you, and production, and I'm performing better and I'm focused more. It's like, cool, that's awesome. You can get all of that. There's byproducts, but why don't you have all of that in the first place? Let's figure out why. Okay, so WHY in capital letters. Microdosing is like a gentle rake, scraping away at our psychological bedrock. Think of like microdose just gently scraping away at those layers of compounded psychological bedrock, right? Or when you go out into your garden, okay, this is how we get in more of the rhythms of nature. When you go out into your garden, if you plant vegetables or weed or cannabis or flowers, or you just want a nice lawn and you have all this debris all over it, what do? You gently rake it away. You rake all that crap away, debris, dross, barnacles away. So what? You can make room to plant spiritual seeds for your future. Okay, so it is diving deep into the psychological bedrock or descending into it in service to your spiritual development. It allows us to step back and witness the flow of thoughts without attachment or identification. Eckhart Tolle says, stop everything you're doing in your life and just observe your life. I like to throw fucks in there and say, stop whatever the fuck you're doing in your life and just observe your life. That's it. That is the practice of microdosing. Through this perspective, we recognize that thoughts are impermanent and illusory, releasing us from the grip of self-judgment. Yes, even the guy here talking to you in the flamingo shirt has a lot of self-judgment. He's very hard on himself, right? He has a lot of negative self-talk at times, right? And it's usually because the shadow of my being turns up and says, you're not in control, dude. You're not getting it right, dude. It's not happening fast enough, dude. You messed up. Why did you mess up? This is all stems from my childhood stuff. Okay, so microdosing, think of it scraping away, right? It just scrapes away at that stuff. Sharpening our awareness through microdosing and mindfulness practices, again, M&M, we gain insight into the arbitrary nature of our thoughts. Thoughts, everybody, if you really think about it, pun intended, it is all human-made. It's a human construct. It's a mental construct. We make those things up. So the mind is really separate from the brain, okay? The brain informs the mind, but the mind is separate from the brain, okay? And we understand that thoughts are these mental constructs influenced by our past experiences, societal conditioning, and cultural narratives, to name a few. They're arbitrary. They do not inherently define who we are or the nature of reality. Okay. There was a lot there, but that's what we're going to learn. Before we get to the how, we must know the why of this. Okay, so I'm a firm believer that, you've heard me say it, get to the root of the root of the root of the root and keep digging, digging, and digging. Okay, this is a very proactive approach versus a reactive approach. What is a reactive approach? It's, okay, go home, take this Xanax, take this Lexapro, take this Wellbutrin, take this Prozac, and you'll be fine. And next thing you know, 20 years is by and you've been taking the same 10 milligram dose every day and you haven't really gotten to the root of anything. You've just masked it. So we need to know the why all of this. And welcome to the club, everybody, of our modern world of 2023 and the three inevitable forces we are collectively facing. And these are just numbers that we think we know. There might be more. Anxiety, 40 million humans in the US. Depression, 1 in 10 people. Addiction, over 20 million. And addiction, again, remember, that's probably just drugs and alcohol. That might not be sex, drugs, people, places, things, food, all the other addictions, technology. That number right there is probably 10 times the amount if we added technology. And some additional facts. We talked about 100,000 people died in 2021 from drug overdoses, mainly synthetic drugs, fentanyl, and pharmaceuticals. Over 70% of our population is prescribed to a pharmaceutical drug. Okay, there's 300 million people in the United States. Do the math there. And last year, remember we talked about that unruly child, that 8-year-old Brian throwing chairs around and just being, you know, a little hellion. 70 million people are prescribed ADHD medications. Okay, last year. Why? Why? That's 25% of the population. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Makes you wonder that we are in this age of anxiety, and it's an ecology of anxiety. Okay, I'm glad I majored in environmental studies with a focus on ecology, even though I didn't do anything with it, but I learned a lot about ecology and the frameworks of ecology that I can apply to other things in my life. And ADHD is this phenomenon of training the mind to escape the present moment when it is uncomfortable. Think about how many times our mind just goes for, we're uncomfortable, we don't want to sit with something, we reach for the phone. We open, remember that refrigerator thing? We walk up into the refrigerator and open it up 10 times in the night thinking a chocolate cake's going to jump out at us. Why? Because we're uncomfortable being bored and alone and sitting with our stuff, our self. Like, so the 70 million people prescribed these ADHD medications, I'm willing to bet that the majority of them is misdiagnosed. Okay, ADHD is a manifestation of our life experiences, and there's nothing wrong with having a diagnosis of ADHD. There's nothing wrong with being on Adderall or Ritalin or any of the ADHD medications. I am not here to judge what you take, how you show up for yourself in your health. I'm just presenting some facts here and my own viewpoints. Yes, we all have anxiety. You have it, I have it, we all have it. Every human being in this world has it. It's just whether or not are we identifying with its stories and the narratives or the screenplay or the Martin Scorsese flick that we like to direct when we're having the anxiety. We're going to learn about how we detach from that and how microdosing can attach from that. So pause here. Anxiety. I decided to focus on anxiety today because we surveyed over 740 people, 747 to be exact, on why they would adopt a microdosing practice, and 92% of them replied for anxiety. But I'm willing to bet a lot of us don't even understand what anxiety is. We know it, right? We know the feeling and we throw it around, oh, I have anxiety or I'm anxious. But when we know it, but when we really go to explain it to some, could we explain it in a way that someone else could comprehend, like some alien that comes down from space and lands in your house and say, explain anxiety to me? Could we do it? It's tough, but we know it. Just like when you go out into nature, you know nature, but can you explain nature to someone else? Okay, so it's a word. Where does it come from? And there's two kind of main forms of anxiety, okay? Chronic anxiety, and this always precedes thought, okay? Physical appearance, financial security, the ability to love or be loved, cynicism about the meaning of life, purpose, how am I going to pay that bill, You know, what color of paint am I going to use on my walls? I'm painting my house right now. You know, all the things, the thoughts. So the anxiety always precedes the thought. Okay. And if we have all these thoughts and this anxiety that's preceding it, right, we're worrying, it manifests in this grandiosity too. On the flip side of the coin, the need to be validated, admired, and to be seen as special. Think social media, everybody. And the kind of other anxiety that most of us feel maybe on a regular basis is fear anxiety. Acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real, right? There's a perceived threat. And this is actually healthy anxiety, right? You know, a car, you know, drives in front of you, okay? And we get anxious. That's healthy anxiety. That is what makes us feel alive, right? That's the biological driver of the nervous systems that have been developing over thousands and thousands and thousands of years and eons. Okay. It is very much in the moment. Okay. So, one of my muses and teachers, Alan Watts, always says that anxiety is just you're in the moment, you're in the present moment. Okay. When you have anxiety, fear based anxiety, you are actually living very much in the moment. However, when we start attaching to that and putting the story to it, that is where we are not being in the moment anymore. Okay, so in review, chronic anxiety precedes thought. It is not rooted in the experience of the moment. And whatever chronic anxiety is right now, I would like to think that three of the big containers of chronic anxiety is the state of the world, okay, brought on by COVID, relationships, and let's add a fourth one in, financial security, careers, jobs, considering we're going to a recession, blah, 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 and all of that, and living in this very like overly digitized economy. It's all about the stories we create about it. It just is. Okay, a Zen proverb here. The things we understand are just as they are. The things we don't understand are just as they are. But our anxiety likes to put meaning to things, and we were like, I don't understand that, so I'm going to create a story around it and play make believe and paint this amazing. I always say, I'm like, geez, I could rival Martin Scorsese with some of the stories that I put in my head, and then I have to reel myself back in and be like, whoa, okay, that was just a story. It will always find a target. Okay, always find a target. I need to blow that emoji up. Boom. But exists independently of its targets. The British psychiatrist R.D. Laing wrote that there are three things that humans are afraid of. Okay, afraid, fear. Okay, number one, death. Number two, other people. Number three, you guessed it, their own minds. Okay, lately I've been kind of like number two, other people. Like I've been just like reserved and kind of introverted and not wanting to be around people. Lake Tahoe and summer, there's a lot of tourists and people around. I got over that fear a long time ago when I got sober. And sometimes I can be afraid of what goes through my own mind. Okay, so let's just absorb that for a bit. We are all human beings, everybody. Just a reminder, we are all human beings. We all have nervous systems. We all have anxiety. Are we going to turn our fear-based anxiety into chronic anxiety? Or are we going to do something about it? Today, we're going to hopefully do something about it. And this right here, it is not until we become aware of it, okay, does it illuminate itself in neon colors, hence the shirt. Like, right, remind something, give it shape, give it form. We have some customers that say, Brian, I have a name for my anxiety. I talk to my anxiety. I treat it as a friend. It's a ball, right? I take this black ball and I move it around, right? I bounce it around and it's black, and then I think of it turning into a red color or a pink color, and then I like spin it, and boom, blast it off into the ether. Okay, like there's all these fun tips and tricks, and when you're microdosing, again, you're opening up to a different vantage point. It really helps with that stuff. Okay, we often, okay, so here's what we do, everybody, with our anxiety. And when I'm speaking to all you, I am included in all of this. We, okay? We. Me too, okay? We signifies a group of like-minded individuals, unity consciousness. If I made I or you, we're not connected anymore. We is a much stronger collection of minds and this unity that we can all be a solution to this age of anxiety. And we repress it under ideas, beliefs, jobs, pointless, busybody, frantic activities, right? We mistake for our true selves. Then we spend pointless hours. I told you we were going to get into some social media stuff. Pointless hours on social media, which is nothing more than a phenomenal breeding ground of millions of people. And I looked it up, 4.9 million around the world posting, projecting their anxieties, 1,074 Instagram posts per second, 6,000 tweets per second, 54,977 Facebook posts per second, trying to convince the world to believe that our self-made fictions are reality, when all it is an illusionary escape from reality. Okay, so social media, mass media, the way people behave, everyone is projecting their own anxieties on everyone else, trying to get you and us in the world to believe that their self-made fictions is reality. Microdosing can blast through this veil. It can see through that, right? It can help us give less fucks and get back to our true selves. And here's some little data right here from Zetasphere. And really, it's nothing more than running away from the present moment. It really makes you wonder about how accurate the 70 million people being prescribed ADHD meds is, when the driving force of ADD is to escape the present moment. Okay, the ecology of anxiety. So now we're going to really get into the ecology of anxiety. So ecology, the branch of biology that deals with the relations of organisms to one another into their physical surroundings. So just like no organism in nature is separate from the system in which it lives, functions, and dies, no natural process can be understood in isolation. We were isolated for a long time, everybody, during COVID, okay? We were separate from each other, but there was a system in place, wasn't there? Okay? It doesn't happen accidentally. It's not pre-programmed by heredity. It doesn't happen accidentally. So by taking this ecological view, we can look at the age of anxiety, which I just kind of went over, as a changeable and evolving dynamic. It's very changeable and it's evolving. That expresses lifelong interaction with the human's social, okay, the world we live in, everything that we do, jobs, going out and getting coffee, going to the mailbox, doing what we do, in emotional surroundings, in our internal space, our internal environment, okay? And one of my favorite quotes here by the founder and discoverer of LSD, Albert Hoffman, basically sums up the same thing here. Reality is the product of a reciprocal interaction between material and energetic signals being emitted from the external world and the conscious living self and the inner world of the human. Okay, so basically inside out, not outside in. Like our worldviews are the way we interpret the world because of our internal environment. Psychedelics can really help us fine-tune that worldview, fine-tune the way we look at the world, or the way that we hold the world, right? The external environment is merely a reflection of our internal environment. That is the real hallucination, everybody. So taking this ecological perspective to microdosing will help us gradually support new ways of developing brain circuits that can promote more adaptive behaviors and responses. Hint, it's not a cure, it's not a magic pill or panacea, but a creation of new resources. It's a tool, okay? Everyone wants different, but no one wants to change. We can do this two ways. We can change the external environment and we can modify the internal one. And remember, this is a journey, everybody. So found this quote here, thought to be really interesting. What an abyss of uncertainty. Whenever the mind feels overtaken by itself, all those overwhelming thoughts, when it, the seeker, the mind, is at the same time dark region which it must go seeking. Okay, let me break that down a little bit. The seeker is at the same time the dark region. The mind is the seeker in it's the dark region which it must go seeking. So we have to show up with a little bit of courage and go into those dark caverns of the mind versus escaping into grab my phone, go to the refrigerator, grab a drink, let's smoke, let's do this, let's distract, because we don't want to go into the dark regions. So here's my 4-step framework about 4-step framework of microdosing and why 90 days. Okay. I appreciate y'all hanging out here with me a little bit longer. Y'all are great, hanging tough, and participating with questions here. I do understand it's at the top of the hour and some of you may have to go. Feelings are not hurt there. We will have a recording of this and you'll be sending it back out. So intention plus introspection multiplied by frequency plus consistency equals transformation over 90 days. And why 90 days? Okay, so back to AA. It was suggested that I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. I went to 88 meetings in 90 days because I listened to all those crazy, weird people that were sober and they had something that I wanted. And I said, you know what? I'm going to show up, even though we're going to read the same thing. We're going to talk about the same stuff. I'm going to read these 12 steps, read these 12 traditions. I went to 88 meetings in 90 days and I am gratefully recovered after 10 and a half years, sitting here today with you all from harmful drugs and alcohol. So it's a season to season approach, an equinox to a solstice to an equinox, where gradual shifts in weather and environment over time have a transformative effect. But what about the science, Brian? Everyone wants to know the science. So I did a little digging. Science struggles with microdosing because it actually challenges the presumptions of science itself. So the mind activity that can physically rewire malfunctioning brain circuits is conscious mental effort. Okay, Dr. Jeffrey Suarez, he studies OCD in his clinic in LA, at UCLA, and calls this mental force. I just call it this: shift your perspective in 90 days. So if changing external circumstances can improve brain physiology, so can mental effort. His studies discovered the intention, and he discovered that intention and intention exert real physical effects on the brain and the prefrontal cortex. I'm not going to get into any of that sciencey stuff. And science and fancy terminology aside, OCD clinic proves what Buddha has been teaching for centuries. Anyone know? Mindful awareness. Let's have ourselves some M&Ms. Okay, so mindful awareness is simply just paying attention in the moment. It's directing our attention not to the mental content of our thoughts, but also to the emotions and mind states. Okay, you all thought we were talking about microdosing and all that stuff. Microdosing, I'm on record say this, but really microdosing is just sped up mindfulness. It's sped up mindful awareness. But if we can combine microdosing with mindfulness, we have a recipe for true transformation. So this 4-step framework is key to unlocking automatic patterns of the anxious mind. In my story, I've told you about that, the 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days to fully really absorb the program's teachings. You have to give this a chance. And if I only had microdosing to add this mental force at the time, geez, I wonder where I'd be, but I'm here now, and that's what matters. Nietzsche, one cannot get rid of anything. One cannot get over anything. One cannot repel anything. Everything hurts. Everything hurts. Humans and things obtrude too closely. Experiences strike too deeply. Memory becomes a festering wound. Memory, a festering wound. Thoughts driven, that are ghosts of our past that are still driving us. So simply put, our anxieties and fear are only temporarily suppressed when we are not taking a proactive approach, i.e. microdosing with the 4-step framework, and whatever else you might do. If we're using it as a crutch without any conscious mental effort, our anxieties and fears rebound with greater force than before. The negative feedback loops, our thought loops, right? Think of how many times those anxieties and fears rebound with greater force than before, because all we're doing is suppressing them with drugs and alcohol and technology and ignoring, distracting. Okay, so how do we break the cycle? Okay, I'm just going to blast through the rest of this, everybody. Who can hang out? I usually go about 90 minutes on this. Yes, Leslie, we are. Yeah, so I always hang out. Cool. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. There's a lot here. I really want to give you all some value into the caverns of the mind. We have to understand why, right? Why are we curious of microdosing in the first place? Help me in. You all, geez. What a cool group. Remember, no matter what the stories we weave around it, remember I said weave before, nature being the evolving medium that weave it all together. Nature is truth. How do we get back to nature? We go in nature. We can ingest things that are from nature, these earth medicines, okay, to understand why we're here on this earth. So our anxiety just is. How do we break this cycle? And my boy Buddha, the unreflecting mind is a poor roof. What happens when we have a poor roof? Floods and snow and the weather and the elements come in and destroy us, destroy our house. By now, it is evident that with our minds, we create the world that we live in. So you see a lot of overlap here with, microdosing. All of a sudden, it's this big trend, right? It's all in Time magazine, and it's going to replace pharmaceuticals and psychedelics this and psychedelics that. And it's like, it's been in front of us for thousands of years. It's been in front of us through time in the last 100 years, especially with, spiritual teachers like Ram Dass and Alan Watts and Buddha and mindfulness and all of that. And it's like, we probably deterred away from, like, I don't want to sit and meditate. I don't want to reflect. I don't want to sit with myself because I'm scared of what comes up. And then microdosing comes along and everyone talks about the clarity and the creativity and all the things. And it's this magic pill and it's going to make all your problems go away. It's like, it doesn't work like that. So I am a huge proponent, even though I sell microdose products and sell a 90-day program, I will be the first one to tell you that it's a losing business model, because I will tell you to do 90 days and then stop for 30, 60. And if you are not willing to put in the work and suit up and show up, it's not for you. Okay. You can try it, you can do it, but if you're going to sit down, shut up and listen, okay, Terence McKenna, you will get an exponential effect out of your practice. Okay. And the way to deal with the mind is not to attempt to change it. Remember, I said I disagree with Michael Pollan's how to change your mind. How to deal with the mind is not to attempt to change it, but to become an impartial observer of it, right? Step aside, pull the observation card, and observe the thoughts and the emotions, the things that are flowing through. So one of the first key points that I give to a customer that starts microdosing and never microdosed before, or hadn't done any personal reflections, just stop, resist the urge, just say no, right? Just say no to typing the blog or cleaning the house or dancing or doing something productive. That's all there, okay? Stop that, sit with it, reflect on why that is happening. Okay, where is that coming from? What did you cut off? Right? What did you release maybe from yourself that was roadblocking you from wanting to do those things in the first place? That is how we cultivate awareness. Okay, and microdosing allows us to step into those spaces or become those spaces. So stop the resist the urge to do the thing that you want to do and sit with that. Right. And that's how we train ourselves. Okay. So again, I asked our good friend Buddha, his response was that although I did not have our scientific knowledge about the development of the brain, whose activity generates most of what we understand as mind. I did recognize that once mind structures, right, the mind structures, the thoughts, the patterns that we put in our head are in place, they determine our perceptions, behaviors, and experiences. Okay, they determine, okay, we're ruled by our thoughts, we're ruled by our past, we're ruled by these past experiences and behaviors. In microdosing, combining mindfulness, M&Ms, we can consciously observe the workings of our mind from a different perspective. That is the practice right there. We can consciously observe the workings of our mind. It's a busy effing place. Okay. If any one of you like me, it is a busy, busy place up there. Like, I don't like being up there all the time. I like, when I go to bed, it's like, oh, nice. I'm so grateful I get to sleep. And I sleep really well. I'm very blessed on that. You're not changing it all together. Michael Pollan, love you, love what you've done, but I disagree with you by changing your mind. Okay. It's a funny, good hook, clickbait, and you are a New York Times bestselling author multiple times, but maybe you're listening. I say it's not about changing it. It is about being an observer of it first. And we can gradually start to let go of the habitual pre-programmed interpretations, which we know as triggers. I get triggered all the time. I'm sure all of you get triggered all the time. It's like everything is triggering now. Okay. People are triggering, like politics are triggering, technology is triggering, like work is triggering, like our kids are triggering, our parents are triggering, everything is triggering. And newsflash, as long as you're a human being dealing with other human beings, we're going to get triggered. But those are great messengers. Those are great little pieces of data and informational points where we can do what, everybody? Not change it, observe it. Yay, observe why I am being triggered. So present reactions to past emotional experiences is essentially a trigger, right? Hence why I don't agree with Mr. Pollan. And that was just a little funny joke there, everybody. I respect Michael a lot. It's about reflection unto the mind, not resistance to it. And like Buddhism, mindfulness, microdosing, everybody, you get up, you make your bed, you eat food, you shower, you brush your teeth, wash your face, whatever you do, okay? Hygiene, right? This is just mental hygiene, right? It's weeding the proverbial weeds of the garden of the mind. It's mental hygiene. We can just really just boil it all down. Microdosing is a word. It's all about cultivating more awareness of self. And if we are unaware that something is influencing our behavior, okay, how are we ever going to understand it or counteract it? Okay, again, everyone wants to get to the top of the mountain without climbing the mountain. So how are you going to understand how to counteract something that is influencing our behavior without cultivating more self-awareness, without understanding it? Okay, and that is really what I teach. And that is what Mind's Eye, the products, and Medicine Box is all about, is just developing more self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is like the sun. Wherever we shine it, we have the ability to transform something. And that's Thich Nhat Hanh, Zen Buddhist. And distilling this down, there are two kinds of mind function. Okay, so now there's a lot of information here. And you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, where do the triggers come from and where does my awareness come from? Okay, so awareness is the observer, the dispassionate observer. And then there's this, like, I call it the blender, the Vitamix, okay, of all these triggers and automatic processes, okay? And I've really combined it into one category, and that's introspection. If you remember, the four-step framework is intention plus frequency plus consistency multiplied by intention plus introspection. So introspection really is sifting. Okay, it's sifting through the blender of automatic processes. It's the cavern of the mind. It's all the stuff, and becoming the dispassionate observer, or the compassionate observer. Okay, the witness. Okay, to develop the self-awareness to what? Counteract the behaviors that are roadblocking us or in our way, right? Self-sabotaging. You've heard all the terms, okay? And number two, automatic processes, triggers, depends largely on neuronal activity, right? Synapses and neurotransmitters, i.e. the brain. While number one does not, right? We all have self-awareness. I always say we are all innate wisdom generating human beings. We just don't know how to access it because we've left it dormant and we piled psychological bedrock over the X amount of years that we've been alive, okay? And again, Eckhart Tolle, be at least as interested in your reactions as in the person or situation that triggers them, okay? One of the biggest pieces of self-awareness that I cultivated for myself was when someone fucking pissed me off. I wanted to, I come from a Sicilian family, East Coast, we're just yelling, screaming, we're gonna rip your head off, but we're gonna love you all at the same time. It's a lot to hold. That's how I learned things. But once I flipped the script and said, why, Brian, are you so upset right now? And the best practice here is why, when someone, we all have had someone cut us off or someone drive slow or someone not use their turn signal driving and we get what? Road rage, right? We're just wanting, but you know what? Throw out some compassion for that person. First of all, because they don't know how to drive. Okay. I have compassion for you, sir, ma'am. You don't know how to drive. Wrap it up in some humility and laugh at it. Laugh at yourself that you're getting so triggered, because why? That trigger is not going to what? Make that person a better driver. Okay. And this is what we call implicit memory. The reactive product of brain circuits constantly, right? Constantly, I'm spinning the gearboxes, right? I call them the gearboxes of my mind, interpreting the present in the light of past experiences. Maybe our mom or our dad or grandfather or brother or sister had reactions like that while you were driving with them. And this is why many of us are challenged, including myself, in deciphering the past from the present. A trigger in the present will set off emotions that were just like bleep, 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 programmed decades ago in our childhood, right? In our adolescence, when we were much more vulnerable and pliable. We didn't have the tools to understand that the things that were happening around us were actually influencing things in us, right? Like Gabor Mate says that trauma is not about what happens to us, and what happens in us, okay? And we hold on to that stuff. And this seems like a reaction to some present situation is in fact a reliving of a past emotional experience. Trippy. It's super trippy when you think about it, and just really like simplify it. Like a reaction to a present situation is really reliving a past emotional experience. Is time a construct, right? Psychedelics, we probably know, most of us on here, transcend space-time. That's why they have such a powerful effect, and it challenges the presumptions of science itself, is because we can transcend space-time and go back to some of these emotional experiences and be like, dude, geez, like my parents just went on vacation when I was 5 years old for a week and a half, dude. Like, that doesn't mean they don't love you and they abandoned you. True story. On 2 hits of LSD, I climbed the tree that I climbed a tree when I was 5 years old. My parents left. I thought I was abandoned. They abandoned me. And I was very much apprehensive in all my relationships with women and even friends and business partnerships, because of this fear of abandonment. And I realized where it came from. And Big Brian, 43-year-old Brian, climbed that same tree in my grandma's yard and came up to little Brian in that tree and hugged him and said, "What do you need, little dude? Oh, you just need some love and some comfort. Like, and it's going to be okay. Mom and dad aren't leaving." Beauty of psychedelics. Microdosing, remember, gentle rake, gentle rake, gentle rake. This memory researcher, psychologist Daniel Schachter, states that this becomes activated when people are influenced by past experiences without any awareness they are remembering. And we've all overreacted. I threw this in here. Like, you're overreacting. How many times we point a finger, you're overreacting. And I've overreacted. And it's like, we can like have some humility and laugh at yourself when you are overreacting, quote fingers. or some compassion for others when they're overreacting, because implicit memory is at play here. Okay. The reaction is not to what is happening in the present moment, that irritable, restless discontentment, but to some buried hurt in the past. And triggers can become a fascinating landmark for, a human landmark for your own well-being. Okay. And don't ignore them. That's why I say resist the urge to like escape or do the thing when you're microdosing. Like just get into it. And then there's the impartial observer. We talked a lot about that. Present moment awareness, conscious attending to what occurs in the mind, separates our reactions from the core events. Okay. It stands outside the triggers. We just need to practice cultivating its wisdom with microdosing, and we can begin to be aware of the ebb and flow, right? The peaks and valleys of emotions and thought patterns instead of getting tangled up, right? When we get tangled up into the web of our thoughts, like we're not being an impartial observer, okay? And Buddha calls this bare attention, as it attends to just the bare facts of perception without reacting to them. And again, everybody, this is very much easier written down and documented on a Google Doc and presented to y'all than it is done. That's why it is called a practice. Okay. The clear and single-minded awareness, what actually happens to us and in us at the successive moments of perception. So bear attention. Again, remember anxiety, it just is, right? No matter what the stories and the narratives and the things we weave around the anxiety, it just is, right? It likes to find a target. Okay, so think about the next time you're having anxiety, and hopefully you're microdosing, and you can apply some of this knowledge here. Bear attention. It's just the bare fact. It just isn't. Separate us from the moment or the core event. Okay. Whew. And the simple practice of microdosing with this 4-step framework helps us bring that impartial observer out of its dormancy, right? Remember the gentle rake. Okay. We're raking away, and it's like, oh, cool. We're opening up this innate wisdom generating, Amanda and Alana and Tracy and Crystal and Jody and Tracy and Jacqueline and Marilyn and Stephanie, Cheryl, everybody are innate wisdom generating humans. It's not so much our reactivity to the world, right? Our worldview, it's our interpretation of it. We can pierce through that. We can pierce the veil with this practice. And our transformation is kind of at this crux or this junction of separating out one's reactions from the core events themselves and combining microdosing and mindfulness, other behavioral exercises, walking in nature, journaling. We make a really epic micro tracker, a food for thought recipe book, which we're going to show you here, combining other elements like a great clean diet, plant-based with cognitive enhancing ingredients in them. Drink a cup of water, right? Get back to the basics. Good sleep. Call your mother, call your dad, call your brother, call your sister. If you were so fortunate to have those family members in your life still, get back to the basics. Those are behavioral exercises, and applying a frequent and consistent practice. We can strengthen ourselves to observe this. And remember that rake analogy. If microdosing is gently excavating at the psychological bedrock of our minds, we're able to practice observing these frames, right? The myriad, think of an old projector, a movie frame, right? It's made up, self-created and directed. Scorsese is one of my favorite directors, but make up the self-created storyline, right? The screenplay directed by Martin Scorsese, and you got Joe Pesci and De Niro and Al Pacino and all the guys in there in the movie of our minds. Okay, and here's simple definition. I know some of you might have a question. What's the difference between microdosing and macrodosing? And it's right there. As Zen Buddhist, microdosing, the gentle rake. And there's like Larry over here in suburbia with his leaf blower causing a bunch of racket in the neighborhood. He's got earphones on because he doesn't want to blow his ear holes out, but he's disturbing the whole goddamn neighborhood, that leaf blower, and he's blowing open the bits and pieces of his psyche right there, right? Microdosing, bam, macrodosing. And a better view of reality. And we're getting to the conclusion right here, everybody. wow, I'm so grateful that you all stuck with me. I really wanted to go out on a limb on this one because one of the biggest questions we get is what happens to me? What goes on in my mind? Like how does it work? You know, I'm no Andrew Huberman. I'm no doctor, no physician. I'm no integrative functional medicine doctor. I'm none of that. I'm not a psychologist, a therapist, any of that. I'm just a guy that is really interested in his brain and mind and how we can all become better human beings and do it together, right? It's that's why we're on, and that's the juice of this earth and this planet, and why we're here is to do this shit together. So we call it a better view of reality, self-awareness achieved. Okay. Hopefully by now we've achieved. And I just want to let you all know, if you weren't paying attention in this moment, we've all achieved a bit more self-awareness because we have some knowledge now. Okay. So knowledge is power, but it's not turned into wisdom until we apply it. So hopefully you all can apply some of these tactics that I've showed you today. It'd be awesome if you applied them with some of our microdosing products in the 90-day program that we'll talk about, or the free online community that we have. Or if you want to get in a call with me, we can talk about this stuff. I love talking about this stuff. Okay. It's a gentle process, everybody. Microdosing is a very gentle process, 100 milligrams of the active compound psilocybin. Okay. Gentle. 1/10 of a gram, subperceptual dose to create a desired therapeutic effect without any of the negative unwanted side effects, the full hallucinogenic experience, i.e. the leaf blower guy. And if you think you're immediately going to gain profound spiritual awakening and have profound insights arise immediately, a lot of people want that. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to get to this. I'm spiritually enlightened. I'm going to cross the canyon. I'm going to teleport. And I'm so shaman now, right? Newsflash, you got to dig into the psychological muck, the bedrock, the caverns of our mind. And if that is not happening to you, guess what? This is a good clue to keep practicing, because practice leads to improvement, while improvement isn't even the objective, okay? Improvement isn't the objective. The only objective is what? The practice. It's the practice, the practice, the practice. Suiting up, showing up, getting up every day and committing yourself to a little bit of this practice, okay? A 1 day on, 2 days off, 3 on, 4 off, frequency plus consistency multiplied by intention plus introspection equals self-awareness. Bam. And so by taking a proactive approach versus the reactive one, you right there are giving yourself a tremendous gift. I think of microdosing not as like something you purchase, right? Not a commodity, not a widget, not a thing, not a bag of chips, right? It's a gift. You're giving yourself a gift. And a little story here. My neighbor, just like 30 feet on the other side of this wall, is my sponsor in AA, and his wife is also in recovery. And God bless those two humans for being my neighbors, for helping me get through the quagmire and the caverns of my own mind so I can teach this type of stuff to people today and continue being a student myself. But his wife said to me that, Brian, you're giving yourself a tremendous chance at living such a beautiful life by this gift of sobriety. Okay, so part of my journey is to pay it forward to others and give yourself a gift. And yes, there's money attached to this, but it's a gift. If you give yourself the chance to microdose and adopt this practice, it is a gift for yourselves. And I promise you, to navigate the journey to becoming a more self-aware individual, we will become calmer, more emotionally present, compassionate to others and self. And Gabor Mate there, another one of my muses, being cut off from our own natural self-compassion is one of the greatest impairments we can suffer. We're less reactive to external triggers, more joyful, newfound clarity, creative. I'm just put like compassionate, conscious, clear communication, courageous, all the things, aware. And we cannot think or act creatively. Okay, this is another thing I say to our customers. You know, they want to be creative, and they want to microdose to find creativity. And it's like, why aren't you creative in the first place? We got to get to that. Remember, the root to the root to the root. Everyone is creative, okay? But when we are flooded with thoughts that do not serve us, how can we sit and be creative? It's one of the worst feelings in the world when I want to sit and like write a presentation or make some content and I can't do it, right? I'm like locked up in my own prison cell of thoughts with the key around my neck because I'm flooded with thoughts and I can't be creative. It's a real thing and it's not fun. So in conclusion, right here, hopefully we learn some things. Microdosing M&Ms, mindfulness has the ability to light the way to wholeness. We've all learned that our mind is pre-programmed from early internal, external, environmental circumstances. Because of this, we develop harmful thought patterns of finding relief, but only sends us further into the abyss of despair. This may all seem overwhelming, stated by Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz again. What we are looking for is what we are looking with. And remember, the seeker is the same time, the dark region, it must go seeking, but there's a way out. Frequency with your microdosing protocol, consistency, same time in your days off, dedication, behavioral exercises, documenting your journey, progress, intention. Why are you doing this, right? What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to become? And how do you want to show up in your process and introspection? We talked a lot about that, becoming the seeker through the caverns of your own mind. You are in the Inspector Gadget. I always say, be the Inspector Gadget of your own mind with a big magnifying glass of your life. It's about doing the psychological work in service to your spiritual development, not the other way around. Okay. It's fully descending into the human experience before we can ascend. Okay. Don't listen to all those spiritual gurus that they're ascended masters and they're ascended up and they're enlightened and they're 5D. It's like, come on, everybody. We're a human effing beings and we must go into the psychological deep work first to unearth it. Then we can rise. Okay, there's the transformation there. Boom, spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, and fall. You can't really see this, but you, me right here, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, hopelessness, wasted money on talk therapy, prescription drugs, all of that, monkey mind on the hamster wheel, getting to some way here where we're open, more conscious, microdosing, journaling, time in nature, and be a lamp unto yourselves, everybody. Another favorite quote there. I did tell you we were going to learn, but Buddha, be a lamp unto yourself. Shine that light unto yourself and just seek. And this is a super heady concluding paragraph by Mark Epstein. What I love about Mark is that he's a meditation teacher, a psychiatrist, uses a lot of like Freudian principles, as well as mindfulness, Buddha. Combines a lot of like science and mindfulness, right? Like that's a beautiful place and the junction to be. But much of the time, it turns out everyday minds are in a state of reactivity. We take this for granted. We do not question our association with our reactions, and we experience ourselves at the mercy of an often hostile or frustrating outer world, or an overwhelming or frightening inner one. And then bare attention, and I added in here, with bare attention in microdosing, we move from this automatic identification with our fear of frustration to a vantage point from which the fear of frustration are attended to with the same dispassionate interest as anything else, right? Anything else. There's enormous freedom to be gained from such a shift, and a gift. Instead of running from difficult emotions or hanging on to those enticing ones, our microdosing practice allows us to contain any reaction, making space for it, but not completely identifying with it. And bam, there you all are right there. And where can I get some mushies? When will I know if it's working? How do I start using them? When do I stop? All great questions there. Alana has been dropping the links in there. My calendar's in the chat. I hope to get some calls with some of you. We also have on www.trymindsi.com a starter kit on there. There's a little bit of a do-it-yourself. You can take this presentation. You get the micro tracker to record your journey, 30, 60, 90-day microdosing capsule there, and then the 90-day journey back to you, which includes 90 days of microdosing products, the micro tracker, a journal, food for thought recipe book, online access to our community. There's like over 650 now. I host a weekly community integration meeting for 1 hour every week for the 90-day customers to really talk about your protocol, the shifts that you're having, tactical tips, tricks, and usually come up with a fun prompt around what the group is exploring there. And then payment plans available, 100% money back guarantee after 90 days. If you're like, Brian, dude, you're full of shit. Everything you talked about, it didn't work. I'll give you all your money back. And also, I will do it on a condition that you'll jump on a call with me for 30 minutes once a week for 4 straight weeks, because I'm really confident to make something click. Your success is our success. And we went over all the 90 days here. So I'm going to stop sharing